In the world of branding and advertising, creativity and innovation are not just tools, they're essential. Behind every effective campaign are dedicated individuals crafting them strategically to resonate and inspire. These are their stories.
The biggest difference between BrandCraft's approach is that we really take a more strategic understanding to our creative, because we're really just trying to find that audience no matter where it's at.
Yeah, you're not just testing just to test, you're testing with a strategy in mind, because what's going to disrupt or get the most attention depends on the platform, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Google, whatever it is.
Having a digital strategy and creative strategy really go hand in hand together. You can't just have one or the other.
The question is about when they should expect to see results, and what you're talking about is, well, it depends on what you mean by results.
Yeah.
Welcome to Behind the Craft. Today we're here with Claudia Myers. She is a digital marketing manager at BrandCraft, where she uses her skills to help bring brands to life through digital marketing campaigns and ads. Claudia, welcome to the show.
Nice to be here.
Yeah, so today we're going to talk a lot about digital marketing strategies and creative strategies and how the two work together. I'm going to talk about one specific project that you and I have worked on together over the last year and probably continuing into next year, it looks like. So. But before we get into that, could you kind of start by just sharing your journey as a digital marketing manager? How did you get into this line of work, and how did you arrive where you are today?
Yeah, so I actually went to WSU, so Washington State University, and I got my bachelor's in business administration with a concentration in marketing. Kind of what led me to that is actually kind of a little bit of a funny story. So I actually thought, Berks was like a really big thing back in high school. And I was like, why does everybody love that? I think that's so weird. They're so ugly, disgusting. Oh my goodness. And then I got in, I noticed that people were starting to like it more, and it was becoming like a fad. Mm-hmm. And that really intrigued me into understanding and learning more about marketing. And so just like the reason why people buy and understanding, the process of how you get someone from who thinks that something's like the most disgusting product ever to something that's actually kind of cool, and actually looks good and is comfortable. And so that kind of led me into marketing just in general. And then I actually started my internship for a social media manager, probably back in 2020. And then kind of worked more in organic social, so I kind of do have that more background of, content strategy, and just kind of learning, the more organic side. Mm-hmm. And then that kind of led me to wanting to learn more about paid. And that's kind of where I'm at now. So just doing paid advertising for both SEM and then social, so yeah.
Yeah, I think it's an important distinction for listeners too. I meant to say this earlier, that you do paid social marketing, not just organic social, which is obviously, like you said, it's an important part of marketing. It's part of what you should be doing on organic social, but what your specialty is and what you do at BrandCraft is on the paid side. Mm-hmm. What's the difference in terms of, just like someone who doesn't know, what's the difference? So you say you do social media marketing on the paid side versus that.
Yeah, so the difference between organic and paid is really just that. So organic is something that, you're just putting out there. It's not paid. You're not putting ad spend to it. And then paid media, or, that's something that you're actually putting money towards. You can build an audience. You can really tailor things to your specific audience, like as far as demographics, location, things like that. So there's a lot more that you can do in paid that you can't in organic. And so that's what's really interesting, that the biggest differentiator is if you're really trying to go after something, very specific, mm-hmm. paid is where you really want to be at.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense, yeah. Different audiences in a way. But the two mm-hmm. probably need to work together to some degree, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah. I saw today that Instagram just updated, this is for the organic side, but Instagram just updated now, like, content that doesn't get a lot of engagement or a lot of views and doesn't perform very well, they're going to start decreasing the quality of it. So it'll be like a lower quality video, for example.
Oh, weird.
Have you heard about this?
I have not.
It's really interesting. So it's sort of... like if it performs better, but then again also if it starts building an audience, then the quality of your stuff will start getting better. So it's just a way for them to, I'm not really sure why, it's like rewarding people who make good content. It'll actually look better. So you'll see ads out, or not ads, but like videos and things on social now that, anyway, we can cut that out. I'm just curious if you'd heard about it. How do you look at the relationship between creative strategy and digital strategy? Do you think one comes before the other, or is it something that you think maybe is best worked together? How do you view those things?
I definitely think it just depends. So if I'm looking more at, on the social side of things, obviously I think having a digital strategy and creative strategy really go hand in hand together. You can't just have one or the other. That being said, when it comes into play, if you want to make that digital strategy first, or your creative strategy first, that completely also depends on like your goals, if you're more e-commerce or if you're more B2B.
Yeah, I think on the creative side, it's one of those things where we've tried a lot, kind of play it both ways, where you do this thing is what comes first, like a chicken or the egg. People say, should we come up with the digital strategy first, the creative strategy first? And I think it tends to work better when you have that collaboration, because for me, it's hard to write content until I know where is this going to go. Like, because the creative strategy, what's going to disrupt or get the most attention depends on the platform, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Google, whatever it is. And so, yeah, you kind of have to really work in tandem. So bang off that, what have you noticed? Is that something that's different about BrandCraft's approach to creative and digital collaboration versus other agencies and past experiences you've had? Or if not, what is the difference, do you think?
I would say the biggest difference between BrandCraft's approach is that we really take a more strategic understanding to our creative. There are people that kind of just throw stuff out there and whatever sticks. But I think there's a lot more to it. There's a lot more A/B testing. There's a lot more, audience testing that a lot of people just don't really understand or know about. And depending on the agency, you really want to make sure that you're doing those testings because you want to find the audience. And that's kind of where BrandCraft a little bit stands out more in a way, because we're really just trying to find that audience no matter where it's at.
Yeah, you're not just testing just to test. You're testing with a strategy in mind, not just going, well, we'll just test red versus blue because we're supposed to test. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. All right, so now let's get into this specific thing. So let's talk about, this is Tri-Cities Chaplaincy. You're located in our Tri-Cities office at BrandCraft. So this is a local client. Are you from Tri-Cities?
I am from
whole life?
Born and raised, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I thought so. I just couldn't remember. Yeah. So this is a Tri-Cities local client, Chaplaincy. So tell me about them. Who are they and what do they do? And then what are their goals? What were their goals when they came to us?
Yeah, so Tri-City Chaplaincy offers hospice care, palliative care, and then grief support both for children and adults in the Tri-Cities area. They also do Benton County and Yakima County. And so their goal for the campaigns were really trying to increase awareness, but also, staying on top of the people who are searching for them. So currently we actually have both an SEM campaign and then also a social campaign running as well.
So when they came to us, I know they were with a different agency for many years, and mainly they were looking to do something different with their strategy. I know that they had said that they'd kind of talked to their previous agency and they'd asked for what's the plan coming up for this year? And they said, I think we're just going to kind of keep it the same as we've been keeping it, which I think this speaks to what you were just talking about, the strategic side. And I think we looked at that and said, well, I think we'd like to look at how things are performing now and come up with a strategy and see what to change, not just keep doing it again because we're doing it. We're not just going to market to market. We're marketing for results. So maybe we talk about, so how did we kick off that campaign? Like, how do we go about doing that, right? We said we're going to start this with Tri-Cities Champions, they're coming into us for the first time after being in the new agency. What was our first step? What did we do?
Yeah, so we had a client kickoff meeting where we kind of just talked about, what their goals were, what they really wanted to see, and where they wanted to expand to. So their biggest goal was they wanted to kind of reach both Benton County and Yakima County, and really just being in both areas, while also, really finding out who their audience is. And maybe they didn't really entirely know that at the time, but just like based off of everything that they were saying, that was their biggest indicator that they wanted, just to find their right audience.
Yeah, I also think an important part of that kickoff, maybe it wasn't even the kickoff, but came up after that kickoff, was that we got together and had like a long strategy session with them where they came in and we spent, 3-4 hours just really getting the ins and outs of the history of the business, organization, I should say. It's a nonprofit, but just getting a history of the organization, what they've done in the past, marketing, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and then more importantly, really who they are, and understanding what that tagline means, to live your best life, and what that means to them, and how we can turn that into messaging. And that was something that we were both involved in, not just the creative team, but the digital team as well, so that we knew that when we wrote copy or we created ads or graphics, it was going to work well with what you guys were doing on the digital side as well. What do you remember from that strategy session and those discussions? Anything that stands out to you that kind of was reflected back on what we ended up doing, taking the direction either creatively or from the digital strategy side?
Just really learning more about their audience and who they really were, because essentially when a client comes in, we don't really know their audience. So the more that we can really dive deep into figuring out, who their audience is, who they're actually trying to go after, and just learning more about that just in general. That was probably the biggest thing that stood out, because overall when we create our creative strategy and digital strategy, that's entirely what we're looking at. So yeah.
It's really kind of, at least in my opinion from the outside, I'm not an expert on this, things like you are, but like this seems like a kind of a tough audience, because it is a group of people that are in a very specific kind of need, and they have, you know what I mean? Like, you don't always need bereavement, you don't always need grief support, but when you do, you want to make sure it's there. So advertising that in a way that's not, obviously salesy was important part of that conversation, but then again, also just finding them. So how do you do that?
Yeah, so a big thing that actually came hand in hand of them doing both search engine marketing as well as social is we could really figure out who their audience was, who was actually searching for them. So for search engine marketing on Google, we really could figure out, what age group was searching for them over, the 2-quarter period time that we've spent so far with them, the demographics of them, age, gender, income, all that stuff. So we were able to figure that out. And so now kind of looking at our 2025 strategy, it's kind of like, how do we implement that into Facebook? Because that is really who their true target audience is. And so just kind of coupling that together is where we're kind of expand and grow and all that stuff.
Oh, interesting. So you're using kind of the insights that you're gaining from all the other things and then applying them to the other platforms. So like what you learned on Google, you can now apply towards your Facebook audience.
Yes.
Very cool. That's cool. We also targeted, this is a fairly, how do you say this? There's a large Hispanic population around here too, and I know that was also a goal we talked about in that strategy, was getting out to more Hispanic audiences as well. So how do you measure like the efficiency of their digital marketing campaign? Like how would you rank it?
Yeah, so if we're looking at social, because that's kind of where the creative aspect really plays a bigger part there. Social, we're really looking at, click-through rates as far as static images, because we really want to see, who is actually interested in our ads. One of the biggest problems that we had in the beginning is, people who are looking for, hospice care, palliative care, grief support. We don't exactly know who that audience is, and Facebook doesn't have super great knowledge on really attracting those certain people when we're creating those audiences. So it's kind of trying to figure out, who those audiences are.
So like how would you rank this, and you say, was it successful or was it not? Like what kind of numbers were you seeing on that, and what have we learned throughout the process?
Yeah, so we first started Q2 kind of playing more into the static images. So it was just kind of generic stuff, not generic in a way that it's bad, but just generic in a way of we didn't know who their audience was.
Right.
So we had to figure that out. And so we kind of started with, just their brand colors, nothing super differentiating. And then we kind of took that learning and that findings, which was the fact that their click-through rates weren't actually as strong as we wanted them to be. But we did notice with bereavement, the only ad that we used more colorful colors, so it was green, that we actually saw way better click-through rates, which was really interesting for us because colors plays such a big role, you would never even kind of think about it. So for Q3, we actually kind of wanted to make that a huge part of it. So we took that and we made sure that all of our ads kind of had more colorful aspects to it, and then also incorporating more GIF styles and then video as well.
Yeah, the animation and movement to get more attention for sure. Yeah, we did a lot of that out the midway through the year. Yeah, the idea, again, behind their tagline is live your best life, which, I mean, they do hospice care, palliative care. So I think for all of us, that was a little bit strange because you're talking about living for someone who actually helps you deal with grief and with death. It's kind of can be a somber topic, but they wanted to approach it from a place of positivity and instead make it about living your best life, both how you remember the person that you've lost in terms of giving you the best last moments you do have with them, making it the best they can. And then also just letting them live their best life to the best of their abilities. These people who are on their, in this situation or have this diseases that are about to pass away soon. And they told all kinds of really cool stories that I think, to me, really resonated. Talked about like how their nurses and people would bring like Whoppers. They call them like Whopper Wednesdays. They had like a patient that like they hated the hospital food, but they couldn't leave the hospital. And I said, well, how can we help him live his best life? And it was just bringing a Whopper to him every Wednesday and saying, look, we'll let you eat what you like to eat in your last moments.
That's awesome.
And so that was sort of the creative direction that we took, was based on trying to tell those stories. Obviously, we didn't show the real people and have those photos and things like that, but trying to show that and say, like, what does live your best life mean in terms of palliative care, in terms of hospice care? What does that look like? And it was really about that extra attention. And really their mission is about letting you live your best life. It's not about letting you die your best death, right? So we wanted to showcase life, and I think that was what kind of influenced the overall direction and the copy and everything that we took.
And then I know, like, as far as Facebook, the campaigns that we ran, we kind of took a different approach. Rather than kind of going specifically for hospice, palliative, and then grief support, we actually wanted to take a more, having a campaign that's branded focused, and then having another campaign that's more service focused.
Yep.
And then we also did the child bereavement care, because that audience is going to be a little different there. So we took more of that approach, and we were able to kind of tell the story, especially with the services, of just how all these things are different and how they can impact different lives at different stages.
What advice do you have for someone else out there who would maybe want to do a campaign like this? Like, what would you say? What are the steps you would tell them to take? And how would you know if a direction like this one is right for them or not?
This one's hard because there's just, like, this client is so unique. And so just, if you were a client, in kind of a more local area, definitely start with a branded campaign. I think if you want to really increase your awareness, if people don't know about you, if they don't know who you are, they don't know your colors, they don't know your logo, your messaging, then you're really going to want to start there. And then from there, you can kind of build and learn more about your audience while doing that. And then that's kind of when you can take the next step and go into, the benefits or the services or educating, depending on whatever service you're in.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've always, I used to say this about cars. I used to do a lot of car commercials at like a previous job, and I'd always say, look, it's not my job to sell a car. It's my job for when someone is looking to buy a car to make sure that you're the first person they think to buy it from.
Yep, definitely.
And that's sort of what that general awareness branded campaign is supposed to do. It's supposed to, let's put you top of mind so that when you're in the unfortunate situation of like needing grief support or bereavement care, you remember chaplaincy and you're going to give them a call. Yeah, cool. Realistically speaking, what kind of timeline should someone expect to get results like chaplaincy saw? Like, how long is each phase of the process? And like, being realistic. I think people think you just turn it on and sales and leads start coming in. Like, what does that actually look like?
Oh man, that question can go in so many different ways. I think with chaplaincy's approach of really wanting to test, I just think starting there, first of all. So basically when you're doing a testing campaign, you typically will test for about 7 to 14 days, depending on your budget. And typically we want to see a budget of probably around, I would say, $10 to $20 a day if you're more local. And then if you're more specialized and you have a more niche audience, I would say 20 to 30. So basically through testing, you're kind of able to figure out, who your audience is.
The question is about when they should expect to see results, and what you're sort of talking about is, well, it depends on what you mean by results.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, like you said, in 7 to 14 days, you should see, instead of looking at maybe sales or conversions, but the results you're going to see is insights. You're gaining insights, which will get you closer to that. Because it would depend. I mean, there isn't like we're going to get you a sale in exactly 26 days, and that's what's going to happen. That's not how it's going to work.
Yeah.
So it's really about, like you said, every 7 to 14 days you're doing testing, and I suppose that's dependent on how many people actually engage with it, right? You wouldn't, if you had a small audience or small test audience, you wouldn't really gain many insights from that. But if you get enough of an audience, spend enough money on that to do that, then you can learn what's working, what's not working, and start to figure out why. And to do that, you have to tweak and sort of test a little bit more. Right? But I like it. I think your answer is right, because it's not like we're going to have a specific timeline to go, oh, well, you'll start getting sales in about a month. You can't know that. But what we can know is that we're going to gain knowledge from this campaign in 7 to 14 days, and we're going to try to adjust, and we're going to refine it and make it better. And, and that will speed up the process slowly over time. Very cool. Okay. The last one is, you've already touched on it, but we'll get to it anyway. So, all right, now when looking at a budget, this is the one everyone hates talking about, at least on the creative side.
Yeah.
How much does someone expect to spend on a project like this? Like, you really want to increase awareness and do an awareness campaign, and obviously eventually turn that into a funnel and get into those specific services and things like that. What's like a realistic budget for paid social?
I would say if you're doing paid social, just looking at the ad spend, I would say anywhere between, at least for this campaign, anywhere between
Right.
800 to 1,000 locally. And kind of like I was saying before, just the $10 to $20 a day as far as testing goes. And then if you are more specialized, that 20 to 30 is kind of more in the range you want to be at. Because that way you're able to kind of test quicker as well. If you have a lower budget, then you're not really able to use Facebook's knowledge quickly, and it takes a lot longer, and then it just kind of slows down your process. So to see real results, great results in a good time period, you really want to make sure that you're hitting those marks.
Perfect. That's the last of my questions. Everything else you want to talk about? Anything else stand out about chaplaincy that you thought was interesting you want to share with the world?
Like, one thing that I didn't touch on that I wanted to touch on,
Okay.
at least, is like the fact that creative it's not always about just the creative. It's also about, copy. Like, what does that look like? How do you test copy? How do you, manipulate one aspect of, like, the headline or the description and just kind of test that? I think that's also a really important role that creatives don't really think about is creative, but it plays such a huge part. So with chaplaincy, we actually started the campaigns in Q2, or just completely testing the copy. And we wanted to figure out, what kinds of messaging really stood out to the client or the audience. And so we actually found really unique insights there, and we were able to kind of pull that and then actually put it into the creative aspect. So it really does play a big role, and not a lot of people are super keen to testing a lot of copy because it's just so simple. But there's actually a lot of things that it plays. So.
Yeah, definitely. So when you say that, are you talking on the caption side or the copy on the creative, like actually what's in there, or both?
Yeah, so when we first started, we did the captions. So the captions include, primary text, headline, things like that. And so from those findings, we were actually able to put that into our creative. And that's, the copy on the actual graphic or on the static image or whatever you're doing. And so it just plays a unique role that, people don't really start testing right away, but it's so easy to just kind of start there because, you're not putting a whole bunch of time into it, but it does play a huge impact. And what's great about Facebook is you're actually able to test multiple copies at one time with one image.
Yep.
And you can see, the click-through rates and, how many people saw it or whatever. And so it just has cool insights that you can see that not a lot of people.
Yeah, that's
really
that's fascinating because, yeah, you're right. Because if you keep the image the same, right, on both, we use two different captions, and this one with this caption performs better, well, that's what it was, the caption that was the difference. So then you can take that message and go, this messaging alone in this caption really resonated. So now you can turn that into creative copy down the road because we knew that worked. So now we can tweak the creative with the copy that we know works. Yeah, that's definitely a cool insight. And that's also, I think, speaks to what the main point I wanted to talk about was how we collaborate between digital strategy and creative strategy. And that's how we use the insights that you gain on the digital side to influence the kind of creative that we developed on our side too. So, sweet. Awesome.
Sweet.
Well, thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much, Aaron.
Bye.